Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today we're going to finish off the history of baseball cards, going back to the Hager book, which goes comprehensive guide to rare baseball cards from 1886 to present. So we started with the 1886s, and we left off. We covered the old judges in the last video, so if you haven't seen it, go back and look at the old judge. We covered that, and we also covered the old judge cabinets. So now we're going to move on to the Allen and Ginters, and we covered the earlier Allen and Ginter. I'm going to just go ahead and redo that real quick because I think these two need to be covered together 1 year after the other. So there's two different Allen and Ginters. There's the 1887 Allen and Ginter, which is the more popular one, and that's the one that's more available. And that's really the one that, you know, most people focus on because it's got all the big names. And this one has 10 of the baseball players. There's a 50 card set, and it has 10 baseball players with the King Kelly, the Cap Anson, and the rest of the guys, Comiskey, Clarkson, Ward, and Tim Keefe, and also got that. And this one was produced, very highly produced. It was one of the first tobacco issues that was produced, mass produced, widely produced, more than the regular cards were during that day. And so then in 1888, this is where we begin this issue here. 1888, they came out with the second Allen and Ginter set. And we'll take a good look at that second set here. And that second set is the N29. The other one was the N28. The N29. And this was the second set of the World Champions cards. Again, this was a set of 50 cards. And just like the regular standard size of the tobacco cards, which is a 1.5 by 2 3/4. And they were issued in 1888 by Allen and Ginter of Richmond, Virginia. The set is almost the same as the N28 set, except the name Allen and Ginter has been removed from the bottom front of the card. So this one just has the player's name, position, and a team on there versus the other one that said Allen and Ginter below that. So it doesn't have the advertising. It's in the back this time around. And it's a little bit different in the back also. The set is almost the same though. So it says only 6 cards in the set are baseball cards. And that's the big difference. And it only features just one Hall of Famer. So instead of the other one having 10 cards, and I think it had 5 Hall of Famers, 6 Hall of Famers, this one only has 1 baseball Hall of Famer and only has 6 baseball cards in it. All of them were in the National League. In the center of the card is the player's portrait, and these are lithographs which are pasted onto thick, white, brittle pressboard stock. So they're pretty thick cards. At the bottom is the player's name, position, and team, and the reverse features a complete and correct checklist. And then it just goes on to talk about the back. On the back, it's Old English script. It says you can see the world's champions. I'll give you a little bit better look at what it looks like there. And then it has the list of all of the different players that are on there. And that's what the actual card will look like there. So it also has famous personalities and things like that because it also has a lot of the athletes. So again, it's a 50 card set. And we'll share some of the stuff here in the bottom that it shows who the players were. So it's a 50 card set, but really the only big card in the entire set is the Ewing, the Buck Ewing. The other players, it's got the other baseball players are George Miller, Joseph Fogarty, James Ryan, Charles Getzian, and John Morrell. So that's pretty much it. None of them were real big name players though. So this set really is not as popular as the other one. But this set is a lot rarer than the other set because it was produced in a lot less quantity. And I can show you that by just, let me share that with you real quick, pull that set back. You'll see here how the author says in the 1887, he's handled 200 of these cards. This is the 1887. But in the 1888, he's only handled 50 of these cards. So you're talking a quarter of the cards. And if you look at the PSA, you'll see that also. And it goes on just to say about this card here. You can see the rest of the player guys in there. One of the most beautiful, rare, and popular 19th century set. You can collect it two ways, the players or the entire set. And it says one of the most popular and rare 19th century sets. But again, it's not as popular because it doesn't have any big names baseball-wise other than Buck Ewing. So moving on to the next is the 1888 playing cards, the WG1. And these are basically like a set of playing cards. And you can see how the back was with like a dark, you know, kind of etching type, drawing type thing, ornate back. And they're playing cards. So there's 72 players, 72 cards in this set. And the reason there's 72 is because there's some that are different teams. You know, you have like George Myers on Washington, George Myers in Indiana. So, you know, sometimes you have different ones, different things. But basically it's 72. Actually, it is 72 different. No, it's not. They've got a number 272, but that's with some of the kind of error card things. Anyway, the set resembles a set of playing cards. No instructions have ever been found on how to play the game, and there are no cards number 2, 3, 4, or 5, even though he does have them here, number 2, 3, 4, or 5. So that's kind of confusing, but either way, it's they're players, and then you can see they're kind of like line drawings of the players there. The complete set was sold in a box, like a playing card box. The front of the set features pastel color line drawings of the baseball players in action for the 1888 teams. The 72 card set includes members of the 8 National League teams at the time, and the reverse exhibit a blue playing card pattern printed on standard playing card stock. So they're kind of playing cards. This is a very rare and tough set. So it does have a lot of Hall of Famers, but again, it's like a line drawing, so it really doesn't really resemble the player as much. You can take a good look at it and see the backs there. And it's a pretty rare set. You don't see these too often, but there are a lot of Hall of Famers in here, and we'll take a look at some of the Hall of Famers that are there. And you've got Cap Anson, you have Dan Brothers, Clarkson, Buck Ewing, you've got Sam Thompson in there, Jim O'Rourke, and of course King Kelly and Tim Keefe and Connie Mack. So the more expensive cards in the set are the Connie Mack, which is like his rookie card, and then you have the Cap Anson, and then the other guys of the King Kelly, Dan Brothers, Tim Keefe, and Billy Sunday, and the other guys are in there, Buck Ewing. So it says for a little bit more about this. It says for the true connoisseurs of the very rare. This is a very rare set to acquire. And again, it's a rare set. It's like playing cards, so they're 2.5 by 3.5. And you know, you see them every once in a while. They are pretty expensive, but they're just not as popular because the fact that they're like playing cards instead of actually being, you know, I guess baseball cards. They're playing cards of baseball players. So now we're going to hit the my favorite set of the 19th century, and the set that I focused on during my collecting years, and this was always been my favorite, still is the 1888 Goodwin Champions, the N162. And they were issued in 1888 by Goodwin and Company of New York, and they were inserted into packs of Old Judge and Gypsy Queen cigarettes. Now again, this is the same as the Old Judge cards. They were also done by Goodwin and Company in New York, and they were also inserted in Old Judge and Gypsy Queen. And this was around the time that they also produced the Old Judge, because Old Judge was produced from 1886 to 1890. So in the middle of that, Goodwin decided to, in order to compete with Allen and Ginter, decided to come up with their own 50 card set, which is, this is what it is, a 50 card set, to compete with the Allen and Ginter's Champions. So he said, you know, Mr. Goodwin said, I'm going to do my own champion set. And he went ahead and he did that. But since he was also distributing the Old Judge cards with the photos at the same time, these were very limited. They're kind of like, I don't know, I would call them like, you know, the modern day Flawless or something like that. They were very, very limited in the higher end cigarettes. And just, you know, so they weren't distributed as much as the Old Judge cards were. So continue on with this. It says the champion set includes billiard players, cyclists, marksmen, runners, pugilists, wrestlers, football player, the first football player card, weightlifters, and Buffalo Bill Cody. It's the first football card, was the first ever issued, and that's the Beecher card. There are 8 baseball players. 4 of them are Hall of Famers in the set. And this is one of the most beautiful and rarest 19th century sets issued. The front of the cards feature color lithos of the players with their names, positions, and teams on the upper portion of the card, pasted on brittle cardboard stock. So again, they're pretty thick, standard size of the regular 1.5 by 2 5/8, just like the tobacco cards. And they were put in the tobacco packs the same as the Old Judge cards. But this was, again, a set of 50 cards and of various multi-sport series. So it goes on to say that the front of the cards feature the color lithos, and then at the bottom is an advertisement in script, and you can see the advertisement here for the Old Judge Gypsy Queen cigarettes on the bottom with a beautiful color picture. Full color, you know, where the Allen and Ginters were more white. He did the entire background with the sky and all that. And then you have the name of the player and the team, and then the list of all of the, on the back of the entire checklist. And again, it's 50 players. And here is the all of the players here. You can take a look at the checklist real quick. So the big cards here are going to be, again, the baseball players. There were 8 of them, and 4 are Hall of Famers. And it's going to be the Cap Anson, the Dan Brothers, the King Kelly, and the Tim Keefe. Those are the 4 big cards as far as baseball players. And then you have the Beecher card. And you can see the football player. And at the time, the Beecher was relatively cheap compared to the baseball. But the Beecher now is a lot more popular. And the John L. Sullivan, again, that's kind of more as almost like his rookie card. And the Buffalo Bill also are the big cards in the set. But you do have a lot of the big name players. You know, you do have the top jockeys, the top tennis players, the oarsmen, the boxers, and the wrestlers. So you have a great variety of you know, different types of players from different sports. And he goes on to say that it's one of the most beautiful and rarest 19th century color sets. You can collect in 2 ways. Again, the 8 players or the 50 card set. I decided to go with the 50 card set. You need to buy a comment. It says purchase anything you can buy. So anyway, that's, and again, look, as far as rarity is concerned, and if you look at this, let's go back. So he says he's handled 25 of these cards in the last 5 years versus the Allen and Ginter. So this shows you kind of the rarity. So here, for the Goodwin Champion, the authors handled 25 of these in the last 5 years versus the Allen Ginter, where he's handled 200 in the last 5 years. So that tells you how, more of the rarity issue, and that's why he says it's one of the rarest. So that's the Goodwin Champions N162. So we're going to move on now to, again, all of these cards from the 1800s are rare. Just some of them are, just rare, depending how they were distributed. And this particular one here is the 1888 G&B chewing gum. And this is a cool set. I'd love to get a sample of one of these cards. I don't have any. It's the E223. And the cool thing about this is this set was the first set that actually was distributed, not with tobacco cards, but with chewing gum. So let's talk about this. Made by the G&B Chewing Gum Company of New York. This was the first set issued in a gum product and is the only 19th century candy issue. So it's the only one issued in candy or gum. The first one issued in candy or gum back in the day. So this has some, history. These cards are similar to the Yum Yum set, where many of the photos came from, but which were smaller in size. And it says the card front is found in 3 types: a portrait in street clothes, a portrait in baseball uniforms, or a line drawing or tracing of the player. And the line drawings, I've seen those are pretty bad. But these with the actual photos are great. Again, the photo needs to be clear, but most of the time it's not. And it says here that on the bottom it says the name of the player with his what position he plays and the National League. And then in the bottom beneath that it says chewing gum. So who are the players in this set? And it's a set of 62 players. It's 1 by 2 1/8. So a little bit smaller than the regular tobacco cards. So the big players here, again, they're going to be the Cap Anson, the John Clarkston, the Comiskey. You've got all of the big. This is really one of the sets that has a lot of Hall of Famers, but it's very, very tough to find. So you see it's got Roger Connor, Buck Ewing, Tim Keefe, King Kelly, Connie Mack, Jim O'Rourke, Billy Sunday, Sam Thompson, Monty Ward, Mickey Welch. A lot of big names in this set. Very, very tough. And he says here, I would avoid this extremely rare issue since there's very few cards known. And there are very, very few cards known. You can see they were expensive back in the day. But interesting set. One of the few candy issues, actually the only candy issues, I guess back in the day, it says the first set with chewing gum. The next is the 1888 SFS California. It's the N321. Try saying that fast. FSS California. These are really beautiful cards. I love the way that the artwork is on these, and you can see, what they look like, the N321s. But the issue with these is that even though they're extremely rare, they're basically minor leaguers. So this set, the N321, was issued in 1888 by SFS and Company of Rochester, New York. This is a very rare regional set depicting players from the California League. So imagine, this is a cards done in New York from the California League back in the 1800s. So the cards are color litho line drawings of the players with their names, positions, and teams identified at the top. They are pasted on brittle cardboard backs. Slightly above the player appear the words California League. At the bottom is an ad for SFS and Company Creole cigarettes. There are 35 cards in the set. There are 5 varieties which are printed on thick paperboard and are blank backed. And these are very expensive Pacific Coast League cards. And there's really not much in there. There's the popular one, I guess, is this Jay Sheridan umpire. I guess he was an umpire in the majors. I don't know anything about him here. I'll show you that. They're all kind of expensive. That's because they're just rare. but there are no Hall of Famers in there. You know, so unless you're a collector here, West Coast collector, investor, rare Pacific Coast type things, they don't recommend anything, maybe to buy the Sheridan Umpire card. But they are beautiful cards, and you can take a good look at them. You can see that they're really nice artwork and stuff, and you know, really cool to have one of those, but they're very expensive. So continuing on with the 1888, and this I'm going to go by real quick because these are not really cards of baseball players, but it's kind of cool because these are cards of Newsboys. Remember back in the day, the Newsboys would really be the guys to share all the news. And if you haven't seen one of my videos that I put out back on articles of the 1800s, and I'll try to link that on here, that about Snipes. Snipes was one of the Newsboys back in the day, and he's the one that really determined the price of the Honus Wagner T206. He knew how many were in town. He knew how many were there because Snipes was, you know, these are kids. They knew all the other kids and all of the cards that were available in that town. But in this thing, they actually did a set of Newsboys, of the actual news kids. So they're super interesting because these kids were really the ones that would spread the news and sell the newspapers. They'd read all the news and stuff. So this is issued in 1888, and it's a set was a first series to depict newspaper boys from 8 different cities who represented their newspapers as local players. So you see the picture of the boys. They're very rare. They're not really that collectible, but you can see there, and you see all of the Newsboys. It's a rare and unusual set, and it's just one of these kind of rare sets from the 1800s, and it kind of relates to back in the day. So just an issue a cool issue on that. Again, just the kids' pictures, and it will say the name of the actual newspaper that they called it the Newsboy League. So it's just kind of cool to give them credit, and it's almost like, you know, if you think about it today, the kids, the Newsboys, were the ones that were pushing the products, kind of like Fanatics and the Breakers. And they're the ones that were really telling the kids what was going on and the people what was going on. And since the kids were the collectors of the cards, and they also were distributed through newspapers back in the day, sometimes the supplements and things like that, it's kind of interesting how they were the marketers. They were the breakers. So today you see cards of breakers coming out. Back in the days, you see the cards of the Newsboys. So check out my Snipes video. I'll link that in the back, and that'll kind of tie you in a little more as to how important these kids were in marketing the cards back in the day. So moving on to 1888, Yum Yum Tobacco, the N403. These Yum Yum tobaccos are really extremely rare. These were issued, let me go on, highlight a little bit for you here. The Yum Yum tobacco cards. Come on, get my camera set up, Orlando. Fix that up a little bit better so we can see it. There we go. All right. So, 1888 Yum Yum Tobacco. Issued in 1888 by the August Beck and Company of Chicago. These cards were distributed in packs of the company's Yum Yum smoking and chewing tobacco. All 8 national clubs and 1 American Association clubs, Brooklyn, were represented in the series. There are 2 different series of sepia cards in this set, one with studio photos and the other ones with full-length action line drawings, copied from studio photos that were used also in the old Judge sets. Both type of cards have the player's name, position appearing below the photo, which are glued to cardboard backs. Again, these are, you know, photos glued to cardboard back. The drawing and small ad on the bottom reads "Smoke One and Chew Yum Yum Tobacco," and they're 50 card set sepia photos, and they're 1 3/8 by 2 3/4, pretty much close to the standard tobacco size ad. And that's the Yum Yum tobacco. Could you give you a good look at it? That's what they look like. So who are the players in this set? Again, it's a set of 50. There's a lot of big name guys in this set, but they're extremely rare and extremely expensive. So you have the Cap Anson again, the Dan brothers, pretty much all the big names, Buck Ewing, John Clarkson, Tim Keefe, King Kelly. And again, you have both. And for the King Kelly, you have a photo and then you have a line drawing. The line drawing is horrible. It's just like a line drawing. So, you know, get the portrait ones if you find one. And you can see the price differences there. You have Connie Mack, Jim O'Rourke, Billy Sunday, Mickey Welch. Again, he goes on to say that rare issue, you know, any card. Again, the Hall of Famers are there, Anson, Clark, Ewing, Keefe, Kelly, Mack, and so on and so on and so on. Next, we're going to move to the 1888 Diamond Cigars, the N526. Now, he doesn't picture the front of these cards, but they're very similar to the playing cards that you saw in the other one that I showed earlier. But he distinguishes by the back of the card. So this is one of the few that you can't see the front of it. But anyway, 1889 Diamond Cigars and the Diamond S Cigars. The front of the card features a black and white line drawing pose of the player. So it's a line drawing, it's not an actual picture of it. And it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't show it in this book, the front of it. The top of the reverse reads the best and good, and you can see what it is. The best, good enough for you. HDNS number 7, all genuine bear, a tag like this. The smoke, the celebrated number 7 cigar. So it's kind of more a cigar card. But it does have some big names in there, even though the cards are ugly. It's got brothers Clarkson, Kelly, and Radburn in there. It's a set of 15 cards, and they're kind of more bigger cards, more kind of like regular size cards, 3 1/8 by 4 1/2. And it says here that it's a very rare, limited known set. And, you know, it's not a real easy set to find, and really not a popular card at all. The next one is a little more popular. These I've seen, and these are kind of a little more popular because it has a little bit better drawing of the players. It's the 1889 E.R. Williams card game. Again, back in these days in the 1800s, again, no radio, no TV, no nothing. So everything was, they played cards, they played games, and most of the games were card games. So you see a lot of card games back in those days. So issued in 1889 by the Egerton R. Williams Company. The front of these cards were created to look like the set of 52 playing cards. The set includes players from both the American and National League. But there are only 19 different color players in the set, and 33 game cards showing different plays. So 19 of the cards show the players, actual players, and the rest of them are just kind of like plays in the game, not really players. The front of these show like drawings. You could see the player in the top and the bottom, and it has like a little thing there. It tells you this guy got a 2-base hit, like a double, and stuff like that. The other ones were like plays, like you struck out or you got a base hit or things, but they were just not players. So they're 3 1/8 by 4 1/2, and they're a set of 19 cards. It says that the reverse of all the cards feature a generic player surrounded by a green tint background. Again, it doesn't show the back of these cards, which I would have liked to have seen. The cards are printed on a standard card stock of the era, which is more like a playing card stock. But it does have Hall of Famers. It's got Cap Anson. Let me go down the list here so I can show you there a little bit better. So it does have Cap Anson and Dan Brothers and Comiskey and Clarkson, and it does have King Kelly and Pud Galvin, Dummy Hoy, and Monty Ward. And again, these are not going to be very expensive because it's more of a playing card versus an actual, baseball card, but you could see what they would look like there. So moving on to the next 1800 card is the 1889 SFS. And again, I'm going to go pretty quick with this because this is the SFS sets are basically just they're very rare, but they're all minor leaguers, and they were distributed in California. So again, extremely rare. They were printed in New York, but they were California League players, and this is really the second series. And they're cool pictures because it shows an actual player, but in California Leagues with a photo. But there's really, no big name guys in here. It says Geiger. I guess that's a combination of two players, but again, it's minor leaguers. So I want to skip through that. And again, another HFS, the 1889 N338. Another cool looking card, but again, another, minor league set that was produced by SFS in New York. But this one does have some major leaguers. Sorry about that. And this is depicting 16 players from the Giants and the Mets. Okay, and from Detroit. Okay, sorry about that. So that was my mistake. Because most of these SFS were minor league, but this was one of the ones that is not minor league. And so let's go on with this. Issued 1889 by SFS Company of Rochester, New York. This was a very popular set depicting 16 players from the New York Giants, New York Mets, and St. Louis, and one from Detroit. Two from St. Louis and one from Detroit. So finally, this New York company produced cards of New York players. They're sepia-toned photos of the players with their names identified below. There's the name of the player. And then you have the SFS and cigarettes logo. The cards are printed on thick, brittle pressboard paper stock, and the backs are blank. They're very rare. I don't think I've ever seen one of these in person. It says they were estimated 2,000, less than 2,000 to exist. I don't know. I've never seen one of these in person myself, but this is what they look like. They are 1.5 by 2 3/4, so they are the standard, pretty much standard size for the cigar cards there. But the big names are the Roger Connor, Buck Ewing, Tim Keefe, Johnny Ward, and Mickey Welch, which were the players from New York at the time. It says it's a popular series. It says the Connor, the Ewing, Keefe, and Ward, and Welch are the best ones. And he's handled just 9 of these cards, so pretty rare set, the SFS. Now we're going to go to the final Allen and Ginter set. And this was a bigger set that was produced it was a world champion, but basically what they did was they took the same card from the Allen and Ginter, and they made it into a bigger card with more drawing in the background. You can see that. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through there because it does have, again, 50 cards, but it only has a few of the Hall of Famers. So let's look at that real quick. And these are rarer and tougher to find than the smaller. Again, these are big, 2 7/8 by 3 1/4. So it's a world champion, but a bigger version. And Allen and Ginter came out with this after the Goodwin came out with theirs. So the second set of the world champions in 1890 is the Allen and Ginter. The designs show the actual 1888 N29 cards surrounded by colored scenes and equipment from the sport the player is indulged in. So it's the same card, kind of embedded on another card with more artwork and a little bit bigger. So there are 6 baseball players, and there's only one Hall of Famer in here, and that's the Buck Ewing. That's the big card in the set. So we'll share that with you here. So you've got basically the Buck Ewing is the big one there, just like we showed you in the 1888. The rest of the players are all non-Hall of Famers, and that is what they look like. So not a very popular set because there's only one Hall of Famer in the entire set. So now we're going to move on to from 1890 to 1893. And this is one of the more rare cards that you're going to see, which is the 1893 Just So Tobacco. The manufacturer of these cards is unknown. All we have to go on is the brand name, Just So Tobacco. The series is one of the rarest in this book, with less than 100 pieces known. It features only members from the Cleveland Club. So this would be something that my buddy Scott would really love to have. Any of these guys, all Cleveland, and this is where you got the Cy Young rookie card. That's how rare this set is. So we'll get to that in a minute here. So actually, we're gonna go ahead and scan so you can see it now. Let's see how close I can get it to, so you can see the players on the list while I read. So again, it's only a set of 9 cards, and it's rare because they don't know too much about it. It was one of these sets that there's just so few of these cards in existence. The series is one of the rarest in the book. It says it features only members from Cleveland. It was not until the early 1960s that a few specimens were found. Another small horde of less than 10 surfaced in 1981. The front of these cards are sepia color studio portrait photos of the players with their names identified below the photo, so you see that. They're all going to be from Cleveland. And the photos are pasted on brittle cardboard backs. Beneath the photo and left to right are the words chew or smoke, just so, in capital letters. The backs are blank and printed on thick pressboard paper. They're 2.5 by 3 7/8. So they're a little bit bigger than the regular tobacco cards. And you see some of the big names in there. You have the Cy Young rookie card, the 1893 Just So Tobacco. And you got John Clarkson and Jesse Burkett. So it tells you here, if you're lucky enough to see one, let alone a Hall of Famer, buy it or call me. He said he has 3 orders for them and he can't fill one. So again, this is the ultimate find. So if you ever find one of these cards, you are lucky. Moving on. Moving on to 1895. And this is one of my favorite, this is my favorite set, I would say, from way back when, as far as baseball sets. Why? Because this was the first baseball set, literally a set of cards produced. Yeah, you can go back and you can look at all of these and stuff, but these were not all baseball sets. These were different ones. And the old judges were really produced in so many different years. And it is the first baseball set, literally, but you can't complete that set. And even some of these sets are still unknown, but this literally is kind of the first set, that you can complete, and that it is a baseball only set. And it's the 1895 actually, even though they produced football, 1894. The 1895 Mayo Cup Plug, the N300. They were issued by Mayo Tobacco Works of Richmond, Virginia. It's a very rare set, and few examples are found in excellent or great or better. The cards were packaged in large metal tins of Mayo cut chewing tobacco. So they were actually in loose tobacco, in a tin of loose tobacco. The format is usually a black and white studio portrait. However, some are sepia. These cards are thick and on brittle paperboard stock. The backs are blank. There were 40 players with 8 varieties, making the complete set of 48. The set features 28 players in uniform, 12 in street clothes, and 8 players were shown both ways. An ad on the bottom is for Mayo Cup Plug. It's unnumbered, but you can see there the logo Mayo Cup Plug, and it says for chewing and smoking. and it's got the name of the player in there. So very popular set. It's a pretty, you know, good size. It's bigger than the tobacco card because they were put in the cut plug in just loose tobacco. It's 1 5/8 by 2 7/8. It's a set of 48 cards and some big names there. All of the big name Hall of Famers are in this set. Camp Anson, Dan Brothers, John Clarkson, Delahanty, Hugh Duffy, Buck Ewing. Here, let me go down the list and you can see all of the guys in there if you want to scan or you want to pause or whatever. It's got all of the big names in there of this set, and it's a very, very popular set. And it's, again, they also had a football and boxing cards also that were Mayo cut plug. But if you look at some of these players, I mean, it's you know, the top players of the day, you know, and you have a lot of rookie cards here that of players that really were not too famous, but it's their first cards that they were issued of those players. So you have Monty Ward, Amos Russi, Will Robinson, Kid Nichols, and Billy Hamilton, and all these guys in there. So beautiful set, tough to find in good condition because of the black borders on that, similar to the 1971's tops. And you can go ahead and take a look at the rest of the stuff that it says there. It says I would purchase the following, and he mentions the Anson, the brothers, the Clarkson, the Delahanty, Duffy, Ewing, McCarthy, and so on and so on and so on. The next set, I think, is the last set. It is the last set produced in the 19th century, and that's the 1896 Mayo cut plug, Mayo cut die cut. Sorry, 1896 Mayo die cut. Again, done by the Mayo Company, like the cut plug, but it's the die cut. So these were issued by the Mayo Tobacco Works of Richmond, Virginia. It's a unique set, but unpopular because the cards are die cut and they're small and do not represent the actual players. So their little tiny action pose players are meant to be held up in stands. They were packaged into small packs of the Mayo cut tobacco, and they were on brittle paperboard stock. And there's a set of 28. They're small. They're 1/4 of an inch, tiny, 1/4 of an inch by 1.5 inch. So they're little things that were put in the small packages of the cut plugs. And basically, it just doesn't really have the name of the players. It just shows you what they play, the right field or the runners, and then in the back it talks a little bit about it there. So if you want to take a look here, there are really no players here. So it's a die cut set. It's kind of a, you know, not something I like, but you know, it's a very, very old card, baseball card from back in the day. So that's about it, guys. Now we get into the 1900s. So thank you for watching. Really, really appreciate it. We've covered now the 19th century cards. We've covered all the way up to the 1947 Bond Bread in this book. And we'll go in and move on to some of the most modern issues here and some of the other stuff they've got in here, like the Redmans, the bazookas, and all that other stuff they got when we hit the 50s and 60s. We'll hit those in another video. So thanks for watching, guys. Orlando from My Collector's Dream. Please like and subscribe. Leave me some comments. What do you think of these 19th century cards? What set is your favorite? What cards are your favorite? Are you looking to buy any of these? Let me know what you guys think. Is it worth my time putting up a 45-minute video? Thanks for watching, guys. Have an awesome, awesome day. It's Orlando from My Collector's Dream. I'll catch you on the next one.